Hello and welcome. Welcome to Truth Talks, an initiative of the Satya Vigyan Foundation. Just to give you a sense on what we're going to be touching on today. You know, many of us come across this book in our lives as students, as children, hopefully even later on in life when we in our professional roles grapple with the concept of truth and how to work with it and essentially face it. Because this can be a battle that can be one of the biggest battles that we fight within ourselves. How to bring out truth or how to face truth, particularly in our difficult life. So it's a journey, it's not a destination, as we all know. But to understand more about truth, why we are talking about it, the concept, the reason why we are doing this at this time, and also how our guest will relate to it today, I'm going to be handing over this to Vallabh Bhansali, the founder of Satya Vigyan and the force behind Truth Talks. A few words about Vallabh Bhansali. He is the founder of the foundation, as I said. He's also co-founder and chairman of Enam Group, trustee of the Bombay Stock Exchange. He has a degree in law and is also a chartered accountant. On that note, it's over to you, Mr. Bhansali.
Thank you, Govind. Good morning, Mr. Murthy and friends. We know propaganda works, but we know that in the end, it is truth that prevails. We at Satya Vigyan Foundation thought of putting the two together. We all understand truth, but somehow when dealing with others, variations of truth become acceptable to us, either due to social norms, white lies as in advertising, legal evidence versus real evidence, paper trails over substance, half-truths, and sometimes plain lies if you have a chorus to back it. I must say that it was a challenge to set on a journey of this kind. We can easily be labeled presumptuous, hypocritical, and worse. Yet, a lesson I learned in childhood from my father egged me on. He used to say that a one-eyed sculptor has the right to create a two-eyed sculpture. So here we started with complete readiness to face brickbats. Isn't it ironic that we have to think of promoting truth, the most fundamental process in our life? And I am quite happy by the complimentary and very encouraging response that we have got to the whole initiative of Truth Talks. As an IPO banker, I know that high quality and sincere promotion can be quite effective. So after almost 25 years, it's one more IPO for Mr. Murthy and me, hopefully as rewarding as the one way back in 1993. Sir, welcome to this momentous first of the Truth Talks. I can't think of anyone who could be better than you, Mr. Murthy, to set the tone and direction of this very delicate but very important experiment. Very grateful to you, sir. Only the truthful can be bold, and this indeed is a bold step. We at Satya Vigyan Foundation are convinced that if all of us increase the truth quotient in our life every day, bit by bit, we can all create an enormously more resourceful society, more productive society, and above all, most reliable society, something that we all need and deserve. We have also experimented in another field of spirituality, where we help people discover that only when their beliefs are founded in universal truths can they hope to progress. Around the world, with 30 seminars on this theme, we have helped thousands of lives look at things differently, kind of created a small wave. Together now, we can create a much larger wave in our society as we bring to you the most distinguished amongst us to share their experiments with life. And these are people who have done a lot of it. As they come and share their experiences and insights with us and inspire us to do the same. Let a truth revolution begin, so to speak. It's not about reaching a 100% truthful society. That is too idealistic, but it can be a good North Star. But a lot can be achieved degree by degree as we bring in truth into our lives. And that is very possible. Thank you all the supporting partners, Desh Apnaye, Bharatiya Jain Sangatana, Flame University, livehistoryindia.com, and of course, Fact Check. Thank you all for joining in large numbers on this journey. For this message to get across and to be meaningful, it has to go beyond your ears, to your hearts, to your homes, to your towns. Please share your ideas with us, feedback with us, and let's all try and take this to every home, to every town. Thank you once again for joining us today this morning. Govind, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Bhansali. So welcome indeed to Truth Talks. So, I was interviewing a very well-known investor, Mark Mobius, a few weeks ago and asked him, what are the kind of stocks that you would invest in at this time? We are indeed in a post-COVID world. And he said, in India, the first thing I look for is stocks with great corporate governance. And who better to talk about this than the team and the person who made corporate governance almost like a competitive strategy. And behind competitive governance, or good competitive governance, lies the concept of truth. So my pleasure to introduce Mr. Narayana Murthy, who founded Infosys in 1981. It's a software global services company for those who didn't know, listed on the NYSE and of course on the Bombay Stock Exchange. Mr. Murthy conceptualized, articulated, and implemented the global delivery model, which has become the backbone of the Indian software industry. Under his leadership, Infosys became the leader in innovation in technical, managerial, and leadership training, software technology, quality, productivity, customer focus, employee satisfaction, and of course, physical and technological infrastructure. When you think of Infosys today, you think of really a vast organization with hundreds of thousands of people and spread over the world, as it were, and not just a virtual organization, as some might believe. Mr. Murthy was elected as a member of the prestigious American Academy of Arts and Sciences in 2019. He's a foreign member of the US National Academy of Engineering and a fellow of the Indian National Academy of Engineering. He received the Founders Medal in 2018, the Hoover Medal in 2012, the Ernst Weber Medal in 2007, and all three from the IEEE. He has also received the Thomas Jefferson Medal and the James C. Morgan Global Humanitarian Award. Currently, Mr. Murthy serves on the boards of Ford Foundation, the Institute of Advanced Study at Princeton, New Jersey, and the United Nations Foundation. He is also a member of the advisory board of the University of Tokyo, Japan, IESC Business School, Spain, among others. He has also served on the international advisory boards of Yale University, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And he's a trustee of the Infosys Science Foundation, which governs the Infosys Prize, an annual award to honor outstanding achievements of researchers and scientists across 6 categories. On that note, let me hand over, and my pleasure to invite Mr. N.R. Narayana Murthy to deliver his talk.
Thank you, Govind. Shri Vallabh Bhansali ji, other organizers of Satya Vigyan Foundation, and yes, it is indeed an honor to be invited to deliver the first lecture of this great experiment. I believe that the only reason why I have been given this honor is because of your affection for me. Thank you very much. I have committed my share of mistakes in my life's journey, attempting to traverse the path of honesty, transparency, and integrity. What life has taught me is that becoming aware of my mistakes and then making a serious effort to avoid committing such mistakes a second time are essential to my betterment. I have tried to do my best in this task. God is not finished with me yet. What is truth? Today I will not talk about the neoclassical correspondence theory, pragmatist theory, or Alfred Tarski's theory of truth. I will not touch upon the works of Friedrich Nietzsche, Immanuel Kant, George Hegel, Alfred Tarski, and Alfred Whitehead to discuss their views of truth. I will limit my discussion of truth to our own rich heritage and how Infosys has benefited from treading the path of honesty, transparency, and integrity during my tenure as the CEO and the executive chairman. In this talk, I will focus primarily on what we at Infosys have done to translate our belief in honesty, transparency, and integrity into actions in our dealings with our stakeholders. Due to the paucity of time, I will limit my examples to our interactions and transactions with our investors and customers. I claim no protection for myself, but I do claim to be a passionate seeker after truth, which is but another name for God, said Mahatma Gandhi. Oxford and Cambridge dictionaries define truth as that which is in accordance with fact and reality. According to Hinduism, truth is unchangeable and it transcends time, space, context, and persons. Satya Mahavrata, which the Jain ascetics recite twice a day during their obligatory pratikramana ritual, has a prominent place for the maxim of speaking the truth. Buddhist ideal, as you people know, is to seek truth. Christians believe that God is truth like Hindus do. Guru Nanak exhorted his disciples to kirat karo or work honestly. The 4,000-year-old Zoroastrian concept of asha and artha is all about disambiguation and truth. Quran defines truth as another name for Allah. Truth is the revealed name of God for the Jewish people. My friends, wherever I look around me, I hear a gentle, fatherly advice to me to seek truth. Upanishads are some of the oldest texts of philosophy and wisdom of ancient India. They tell us the story of Jabala, who went to Gautama Rishi to learn Vedas and Upanishads. Gautama wanted to ascertain Jabala's suitability to learn Upanishads. So Gautama Rishi asked Jabala who his father was. Jabala told Gautama the uncomfortable truth that even his own mother did not know who his father was. Gautama was very impressed with the level of honesty of Jabala, took him as his disciple, taught him the Upanishads, and named him Satyakama, that is, the seeker of truth. This story tells us how truth has been venerated in India right from the beginning of our civilization. Manusmriti tells us that truth is superior to silence. The ancient Hindus believed that truth alone triumphs in the end, as is written in Mundaka Upanishad. This belief has become the national motto of India. It is inscribed at the base of our national emblem as Satyameva Jayate. There is a general belief in the world that there are occasions when truth and righteousness may be forsaken temporarily if a life serves a nobler goal or a larger interest. There are several instances in Mahabharata when a lie was used so that righteousness prevailed over the forces of evil. Plato too discusses the concept of a noble lie, a lie uttered to serve greater interest without hurting anyone. After all, using tricks to deceive the enemy and win the battle is a fundamental ploy of every war. The justification, right from the time of Mahabharata to the current time, for telling lies and being tricky in a war is that the enemy stands for evil and that it is the duty of the righteous people to defeat the forces of evil. Why do we venerate truth? There are several reasons. First of all, telling the truth is the least stressful option for the human mind. Lies take much mental energy to suppress one's conscience. Mental anxiety arising out of telling lies impacts one's health. Telling a single lie requires one to tell many more lies to justify the first lie. If we start lying as a habit, we will stop knowing what is real and what is unreal in this world. Being truthful enhances the trust between us and our dear ones, near ones, colleagues, friends, and the entire society. It develops a positive energy in us and in others. The habit of telling lies destroys the person in the end. A society where people are encouraged to shun lies in discharging their obligations to individuals and to institutions achieves impressive and rapid social and economic progress. On the other hand, a society where there is no stigma to telling lies in discharging one's obligations to individuals and to institutions decays and dies. Why do people hesitate to tell the truth? It is out of fear of the consequences. What is fear? Fear is lack of information. Children are scared to go into a dark room because they lack information about what is inside the room. Therefore, it is important for elders to use stories from our epics and from our contemporary lives to tell youngsters that sometimes the mistake of telling a lie does get committed inadvertently, that the youngsters have to be honest and transparent, admit these mistakes, and that the youngsters should resolve not to commit such mistakes again. Every society has decided from time immemorial that a person deliberately committing a mistake, including telling a lie, that hurts other citizens has to accept a punishment according to a graded scale based on the magnitude of the impact of that mistake. Parents and teachers have to educate their children about the consequences of telling lies. Parents and teachers have to convince their children that proactively admitting they lied will earn them goodwill from others and the punishment, if any, will be small. The elders have to tell their children stories to convince them that a liar will be caught in the end and will pay an even higher penalty than if he or she had voluntarily admitted the lie. As children grow older, they have to be helped to realize that their conscience weighs heavily on them if they proactively tell lies. Children must be taught that the best way of lightening one's conscience is to tell the truth early and proactively. The ultimate aim of truth is to practice integrity. That is to become a trustworthy and an honorable person who develops positive and happy relationships. What is integrity? It is adhering to morals, values, principles, and promises. It is basing one's actions on the firm foundations of fairness and honesty. Fairness is following the golden rule enunciated by Jesus of Nazareth. It can be summed up by the adage, Do unto others what you want them to do unto you. Integrity is about thinking deeply what is right and true. It is the ability to discern the right from the wrong. It is following the universally accepted moral compass that transcends nations, times, situations, classes, races, and cultures. It is choosing the right path of conduct in a situation, behaving consistently with the right thing to do, no matter what the costs are, and publicly standing firm for your chosen path, no matter how the society and your colleagues vilify you. Honesty and transparency are the two instruments that help you practice integrity. Honesty is, according to the Oxford Dictionary, truthfulness, frankness, and being free from deceit and fraud. Honesty is a person's ability to speak truth in a given situation. Integrity is a person's value system, rectitude, and conviction. Therefore, integrity is a higher virtue than honesty. All that is required of an honest person is that he or she does not tell a lie. An honest person may witness an unjust action and remain silent. He will continue to be called an honest person. Honesty comes into play only when you are asked a question and you answer it. In fact, most of the honest people in the world choose the path of silence rather than being truthful when confronted with an unpleasant and unjustifiable situation. However, a person of integrity is courageous enough to be proactive in being honest and transparent about such situations. What is transparency? Transparency is about proactively bringing honesty to the stakeholders in a given situation. Transparency is being truthful to the stakeholders about a situation when these stakeholders do not even know what questions to ask for. Professor Stephen Carter of Yale Law School said, and I quote him, one cannot have integrity without honesty, but one can be honest without integrity, unquote. I would say that a decent person has to cultivate both honesty and transparency as a habit to become a man of integrity. Right from my childhood, my mother was insistent that we, her children, tell the truth on our own in every situation. She insisted that we demonstrate integrity of thought and integrity of action. She defined these terms as having good and noble thoughts that make our society a better place and acting according to those thoughts in every situation. To demonstrate why these two were very important for her children, my mother used to tell the story of Kanakadasa's devotion to integrity in thought and in action. Kanakadasa, who lived from 1509 to 1609 AD, was a famous saint composer of Carnatic music from North Karnataka. One day, when Kanakadasa was a child, his teacher gave a banana to each of his students in the class, asked them to go to a place where nobody could watch them, and eat the banana all alone. After half an hour, the class resumed. Every student except Kanakadasa had eaten his or her banana and was gloating about the strange deserted places they had found where nobody saw them eating their banana. However, Kanakadasa was silent, serene, and had his banana still with him. The teacher asked Kanakadasa, why he could not find a place where there was nobody watching him and eat his banana. Kanakadasa replied calmly that he had been taught by the same teacher just the previous day to believe that God was everywhere. Kanakadasa also said that he understood from his lesson the previous day that there was no place on earth where he could be alone and away from God. Therefore, Kanakadasa said he could not hide eating his banana from God. So, my mother used to tell us that it was important to remember that integrity of thought and integrity of action were both important, and these two give us peace of mind. Let me now come down from Kanakadasa's time to the present times. I am a karma yogi. I believe in action and not just in words. I decided to conduct an experiment to make honesty, transparency, and integrity a corporate habit of Infosys during my tenure as the CEO and the executive chairman of Infosys. I realized that Infosians needed a strong incentive to embrace and practice honesty, transparency, and integrity on a sustained basis. Around that time in 1994, I was present at a function where an attendee asked Sri Rahul Bajaj which management guru Rahul ji followed to become a good manager. Sri Rahul ji's answer is etched in my mind indelibly. He said that market competition was the best management guru and that competition taught him to do everything legal and ethical to deliver better value than his competitors to his stakeholders, that is customers, employees, investors, vendor partners, government of the land, and the society. After less than the laudatory IPO of Infosys in 1993, my mind was fixated on convincing our investors that Infosys was a company that deserved the attention and trust of a larger number of shareholders or investors. I knew we had to earn the trust of these people by integrity of our thought and our action. That is when Sri Rahul Bajaj's answer struck me as the best solution to the problem. So I decided to use honesty, transparency, and integrity as a competitive advantage for Infosys in the marketplace. I knew it would enhance the pride, enthusiasm, and energy of our employees. It meant lots of hard work and extra expenditure for the company. It meant enhancing our work productivity and enhancing our already high agility of response. It meant our finance team had to make a habit of working on Saturday. Fortunately, we had two extraordinary leaders in our finance department, Sri T.V. Mohandas Pai and Sri V. Balakrishnan, who agreed to lead this adventure if I gave them full support. The first decision we took was to publish our financial statements every quarter. At that time, SEBI had mandated publishing of unaudited 6 monthly financial statements. We wanted to leapfrog to voluntarily publishing our audited quarterly financial statements. There was some disquiet amongst many Infosians that it meant extra work for our finance, sales, delivery, and corporate design groups. Our external and internal auditors were also concerned about the increased load for them, but the persuasive powers of Mohan and Bala won the battle. We also decided to disclose information like employee attrition, our fulfillment of export obligation, what our profits would have been if we had not availed of tax exemption and paid our taxes fully, per capita revenue productivity, revenue from fixed price projects, and geographical segmentation of revenue in our quarterly disclosures. At that time, they were considered company confidential information. There was much pleasant surprise amongst our investors and analysts who covered the Infosys stock. It won the hearts of the investor world in India. The very next year, we started our project to prepare Infosys for listing on NASDAQ. That meant we had to practice producing and publishing our results, not just according to the Indian GAAP, that is the generally accepted accounting principles, but also according to the US GAAP every quarter. We decided that the quarterly Indian GAAP financial statements would be audited, the quarterly US GAAP financial statements would be unaudited. There was no precedent in India of publishing the US GAAP financial statements since we were the first company to attempt this. Many people warned us that the level of transparency required by the US GAAP and SEC was onerous and that we were trying to be unnecessarily adventurous. They told us that we would be disclosing confidential information to our competitors. I consulted Vallabh. He was, as usual, very encouraging and supportive. Even though Mohan and Vallabh were very knowledgeable in the US GAAP and SEC requirements, they wanted a competent outside agency to provide the third-party verification that we were doing everything properly. So we appointed KPMG Bharat Rawat to advise us on the nuances of the US GAAP and on the differences between the two GAAP for reconciliation. KPMG was requested to do the annual audit under the US GAAP. Mohan and Bala took up the additional task of preparing 20F form of the SEC, which is required of all non-US companies listed on a US stock exchange. This was not necessary for us since we were not yet listed on NASDAQ. But Mohan felt it was a good practice run for us. It meant considerable extra work for our finance group. But then Mohan, Bala, Vinayak and their team were always aspirational in their mindset. Our hunger for transparency was unquenchable. The more work we did towards improving the transparency of our financial statements, the hungrier we became for transparency. We were also enthused by the positive reaction of our shareholders for our initiative in honesty, transparency, and integrity. Let me tell you another story about our transparency. We had set apart a certain amount of money in 1994 for opening our sales office in the US. We had applied to the Reserve Bank of India for the approval to open this office in Boston. Those days, RBI took much time to approve the opening of offices abroad by Indian companies. So we decided to invest some of that money in the secondary markets, the secondary equities market, while waiting for the RBI approval. Alas, we lost a part of that money. As per the SEBI regulations in the middle 90s, there was no requirement to disclose this to the shareholders. It was also not a material amount. Many internal people opined that disclosing this information would sully our reputation as good managers of shareholder money and that some shareholders may actually sue us. However, I have always believed and acted according to my belief that transparency is about disclosing bad news early and voluntarily. It is not gloating in public about good news. I believe that no board can decide not to disclose any company information to its shareholders, however small they may be. Good governance is following the adage, when in doubt, disclose. Good governance is, after all, providing full transparency to the smallest shareholder. So I voluntarily disclosed our losses at the AGM, apologized to our shareholders for our mistake, and promised them that we would never ever again invest shareholders' money in the secondary market. The shareholders were pleasantly surprised at the level of honesty and transparency we showed. They excused us. We duly got listed on NASDAQ on March 11, 1999. Standing in front of bright arc lights, I borrowed the words of Neil Armstrong and said, "It is a small step for NASDAQ, but a giant leap for Infosys and the Indian software industry." Listing on NASDAQ expanded our horizon for transparency and integrity. When the SEC released the Blue Ribbon Committee report on better transparency, we were among the first 5 companies on NASDAQ to fully comply with its recommendations. Sarbanes-Oxley Act was introduced by the SEC to enhance the accuracy and reliability of corporate disclosures in July 2002. Infosys was once again one of the earliest to fully implement it. These projects required lots of hard work and discipline. But as usual, Mohan and Bala worked every Saturday and most Sundays and completed the implementation of Sarbanes-Oxley Act well in time. We implemented several other initiatives that enhance transparency in the companies dealing with customers, employees, vendor partners, government of the land, and the society. Today, due to the shortage of time, I will just give 2 examples of our integrity when dealing with our customers. Our work in honesty, transparency, and integrity with other stakeholders will be a topic for another day. One of our important customers who formed 25% of our revenue in 1995 wanted to negotiate down the rates with the 5 Indian software vendors that this customer was dealing with. We tried our best to convince this customer with data and fact why reducing our rates was going to impede our investments, quality, productivity, training, technology, and physical infrastructure. We explained that Infosys would become a weaker institution and would not be able to leverage the advances in technology for the benefit of this customer. We added that such a reduction of rates may force us to shortchange that customer in the level of service we provided that customer. We also felt that accepting the new rate with that customer alone meant being unfair to our other similar customers. However, our negotiations failed since the customer told us that other Indian vendors were willing to sign on dotted lines. I took a decision to part with that customer in a respectful way and promised to transition their business to a competitor of ours to the satisfaction of that customer. I believe that our commitment to integrity required disclosing the bad news early and proactively to our shareholders. We disclosed to the market within 48 hours of our decision that we were giving up this customer of ours since we could not afford to accept the customer's revised terms. I was expecting the stock price to go down. I don't think it did. That is when I realized the true impact of the much spoken adage. Investors understand that every business will have ups and downs. What they want businessmen to do is to level with them at all times. I'm glad I acted according to the adage Let the good news take the stairs, but make sure the bad news takes the elevator. Let me give another example of the practice of integrity at Infosys. In 1990, Infosys had submitted a proposal for developing a large computerized online information system to a well-known sports shoe manufacturer in the UK. During our initial discussion with the head of the MIS department in his office, he received a call from his CEO and he told us that he would be away from his office for an hour. On the table, right in front of us, was the competing proposal for the same project from our only competitor. It was very tempting for us to open it and look at the price offered by our only competitor. My colleague Dinesh and I were the only two people in the room, and the head of the MIS department was away for almost an hour. Nobody would have noticed us opening that proposal and looking at it in detail. But Dinesh and I decided that looking at the competitive proposal was not ethical. We just did not yield to that temptation. What did these acts of honesty, transparency, and integrity achieve for us? They helped us make Infosys the most respected company in India and one of the most respected company in the world, as long as I was the CEO and the executive chairman of the company. This was a promise I had made to my wife and to myself when the Infosys stock opened on June 6, 1993 on the Bombay Stock Exchange. On that day, I decided to make the adage, the softest pillow is a clear conscience, my motto in the remaining years of my life. I am glad I have done my best to live up to it. For Infoscience, it was a great honor to be called the most ethical and trustworthy company. I believe that other things being equal, the price to earnings ratio of a stock is higher for a company that is committed to honesty, transparency, and integrity. Above all, honesty, transparency, and integrity in our thoughts and in our actions brought pride, confidence, enthusiasm, and energy to our employees to work hard, to innovate, and add even greater value to our stakeholders. We attracted lots of long-term investors. Today we have, I believe, 1.15 million shareholders. By 2002, we had become the most loved stock of BSE. Our commitment to integrity made us trustworthy with our stakeholders. It made Infosys a role model for the corporate world in India. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Murthy, for that. There are a lot of questions coming as well, as would be expected. So, let me pick up on a couple of points that you've made. You talked about the hesitation to tell the truth, and you've also said that lies are stressful, and you say one, you have to say more. And obviously, on the other hand, if you say the truth, then it's much more easy to do so. Tell us about two things. One is this, I'm assuming, goes before Infosys. Your approach has been fashioned, I'm sure, much earlier in life, and there must have been something or a set of events, or maybe your childhood, which or things that happened in your childhood, which caused your thinking to develop in that way. That's number one. And the second question is, before I bring in the others, is
No, let me
yeah,
answer.
go ahead. Answer the first one. Yes.
Because I forget it. You see, I'll start my 75th year soon. Therefore, I am prone to forgetting. The biggest influence that I have had in treating public property more carefully than private property was from a high school teacher of mine in Mysore in 1960. He was a chemistry teacher. He was conducting an experiment, and that experiment required him to put a little bit of sodium chloride or common salt into the test tube. I was sitting in the front bench with some friends, and he was very, very careful in making sure that minimum amount of common salt went into the test tube. And my friend by name Ananta Srinivas Prasad, who was sitting next to me, burst out laughing. The teacher stopped the experiment. His name is Mr. K.V. Narayan. He's dead now. He's no more. He came to my friend and said, "Young man, what was so funny about what I was doing? Why did you laugh?" And you know, children are more honest than elders, generally. So my friend said, "Sir, you were so stingy with common salt, which is so inexpensive. That's why I laughed." Then Mr. Kevin Narayan said something that has stayed with me even today. He said, "This common salt belongs to the entire school. It belongs to you, it belongs to me, it belongs to students, all the 60 students in this class, every student in this school, every teacher, every janitor, etc. Therefore, I have to treat this school property with utmost care." And he said, "Today, after the class is over, please come with me to my house. I will give you a glass jar full of common salt free, because that is my personal property and I can be absolutely free in spending it in whatever way I want." I think the whole principle of corporate governance rests on treating the public property, treating the property of the company, treating the community property with care. And that also means that not creating any asymmetry of benefits between the owner, managers, and the rest of the shareholders.
What is the, you talked about how you made this a cause for Infosys itself, or Infosys, and you also talked about in the context of financial reporting, how you had managers at that time young, I'm sure, like Mohandas Pai and Balakrishnan to support you and take it forward. So is this something that people can do later on in life? You know, I mean, you talked about a powerful childhood example and influence, and that's what shaped your personality and your response to situations. But can people do it later?
Well, you know, one of the things that I was fairly good was in associating myself with people who had very good value system. Mohan was just 35 when he joined me. And of course, he was an extraordinarily bright person, an excellent value system. So I believe that if we are in an environment where the seniors, our bosses, our elders, they are all behaving in a desirable way, then we will automatically create an environment where people hesitate to do wrong things. And that hesitation over a period of time becomes a habit. And once people make it a habit, then the rest is very easy. And I'm very, very happy that I had extraordinary people in my team.
You know, here's a question. Venkat Ramakrishnan asked, we would like to hear how you cope with the difficulty of sustaining this level of honesty, integrity, and transparency. It's almost superhuman in the current society. And if I can add to that, you know, many a time, I'm sure a business leader like yourself takes tough decisions. I'm speaking in the context of truth, but within, perhaps there is the residue or the residual effect or impact of that decision can be huge. I mean, it may be sleepless nights, it may be other kinds of mental impact. So dealing with maybe one is the immediate outcome, which may be good, but there may be longer term impact. I mean, what is your experience been, and other
No,
instances?
no. Yeah, Govind, let me be very honest, because this is a platform being honest. In 2017, when there was serious governance deficit at Infosys, I did have tremendous stress. Let me be very honest about it. However, I believe in God. I have faith. Why do you need God? Because God provides you hope. And because I had tremendous faith in God, I had tremendous faith in goodness of people, I had tremendous faith in the goodness of the society. I had tremendous hope that things would become better and all the unsavory characters would be away and all of that. So I'm glad it happened. I'm glad it happened. So I think whenever there is any stress, you need to have faith in God. You need to get the support of the family and close friends, and automatically you will feel that the situation is much more hopeful and easier to handle.
You talked about, silence, and it's not that you're not truthful if you're silent, but for you for you, maybe this is a competitive advantage, or it has become a competitive advantage, being truthful, being, a company with the highest integrity. But for someone else, it may not be, including maybe someone who succeeds you in a company. How do you then view that? I mean, is this something that is it a personal belief, and maybe at the point that you're running the organization and organizational extension, and should it move on, or do you feel strongly that this is something that has to be there everywhere, or no?
No, I think, at the end of the day, we are all answerable to our conscience. That's why I did quote in my talk, the softest pillow is a clear conscience. If you want to sleep well, if you want to earn the goodwill of the society, if you want to earn the respect of the society, then the path of righteousness is the way to go along there. You may succeed, you may not. There may be times when you do things correctly, there are times when you may not. At least the direction is very clear. At least the desire is clear. At least the willingness is clear. Look at Mahabharata itself. For Duryodhana, disrobing Draupadi was right. Then cheating Pandavas was right. Everything was okay for him. But we all know what happened in the end. The righteous force, the force of righteousness prevailed over the force of evil. So we have to learn from our epics and from our contemporary stories. I mean, right now there is a businessman sitting in London, right? For the last 4 or 5 years. We all know that. Why did it happen? Because of certain things that he should not have done. So I may continue to do wrong things and think it is right. But at the end of the day, as we say in my mother tongue Kannada, a thief's wife will end up as a widow finally. That means he will be sent to the gallows. So therefore, for the sake of a clear conscience, for the sake of positive relationships, for the sake of inner happiness, for the sake of benefit of the society, I think it is very, very important to walk the path of honesty, transparency, and integrity. But as I pointed out right in the beginning, we may not succeed 100% of the time, but we may succeed 80% this year. 5 years from now, we may succeed in 90%. Doesn't matter, but that's improvement, as Vallabhji pointed out. So therefore, I think these are all things that should be attempted, because this is good for the society.
Okay, Pankaj Kumar Bothra asks, situationally changing and adapting to the situation and with reducing honesty and integrity to the situation, don't you think it is the need of the hour? Please advise.
No. Who said that? No, nobody says that the way to overcome any lacuna or come out of a bad situation is by telling lies, by doing wrong things. No, I don't think so. That is a wrong idea. The only way you can come out of any difficult situation is by being honest, by accepting one's mistake, by saying that, yes, I have learned my lesson and next time I won't do this. I think even though we may, for a short period of time, lose the respect of the society because of the mistakes that we committed, however, over a period of time, people will understand that we are human beings. We have worked very hard to improve ourselves, and therefore we deserve certain kindness and certain respect. Absolutely.
Do you look down on someone who you feel is not following this path?
No, the issue is not looking down. The issue is that every human being has the potential to reach a high level. When you see an individual deliberately making effort to move away from that target, then you feel sad for that individual. You advise that person once. You advise that person twice. But then finally you say, look man, that is his choice, what to do. So it is not a question of how you feel. I think the best thing is to try and help an individual to do better and better and better.
So I'm also asking this in the context of organizations, and many people who are watching today run organizations. So, when you, for instance, I'm sure have had colleagues who've not come along with you in this quest and of transparency, integrity in the manner that you wanted. What have you done?
No, I think as long as I was the CEO, as long as I was the chairman, I'm very happy to say that all my colleagues were totally with me. Absolutely, 100%. Yes, there were some mistakes they committed, like I committed too. It's not like I didn't commit any mistake. And I was open. I discussed my mistake. We said, what is it that we can do to ensure that we don't commit this mistake next time? So I was very, very fortunate to have my colleagues fully subscribe to the values that we had. Except, as I said, there were rare mistakes committed. But by and large, we all moved together properly.
Can you give an example of the mistake? So, for instance, you talked about selling of shares from the money that you had collected in the IPO. Buying of stock in the secondary market from the money you collected in the IPO, which not have been done, but you disclosed it. But that was a mistake, but that was not necessarily a conflict with truth itself. So what's the mistake that you made?
No, 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 no. You see, remember, in my speech, I said many of the internal people felt that disclosing that to shareholders would mean that we are not as smart managers as the outside world thought, as the shareholders thought. That, in other words, our reputation will come down. That was the biggest issue that confronted us. But however we said, as I told you, my belief was that investors understand every business will have ups and downs, every manager will make some mistakes. However, they want the investor, the shareholders want the management to level with them at all points of time to tell the truth. So therefore, the worry that some internal people had was that our reputation will be sullied. That was the worry. But we said that's okay.
Okay, question from Amrish Singhvi. Hiding of truth or silence is sometimes inevitable because the recipient is not ready to accept the situation. Isn't it correct in such point to stay silent?
No. You see, then what you are saying is, you see, at the end of the day, we have to understand that truth, transparency, good behavior, etc. These are all parts of the protocol for behavior in a society, which enhances the comfort and confidence of each member of the society in every other member of the society. That is what is called value system. Because if you and I, or 10 of us are together, if you know that I will follow that value system, you will go to sleep well, you won't worry about me. Now, unfortunately, if I were not to follow that, and you, because you are a good friend of mine, you keep quiet, and you do not allow the entire community to say, this is not right, this should not be done, and therefore whosoever has done this has to pay a certain penalty. If that is not done, then tomorrow third fellow will do. Let me give you one story. I believe there was a village in Karnataka, and they wanted to conduct a festival the next day, and the village panchayat said, you know, every house has to contribute 1 glass of milk, and there is this big vessel. Please pour your milk into that, and we will make kheer or whatever it is, and then we will distribute after the festival. So one fellow said, everybody else is anyway putting milk, so I will put water. So he went and put water. Next morning, when they came, they found only water, because everybody said that others are going to put milk and I can put water. So therefore, it is very important for people to stand up for what is right. That is what the court system is all about, right? Then we can say, no, this fellow, I'm scared of him, or he should not be punished. No. Then the police fellows will not be able to work. So therefore, it is the responsibility of every individual to stand up for what is right. Doesn't matter how uncomfortable that is, how painful that is. Otherwise, the society won't make progress.
Okay, Sunil Bhantia asks, bribing politicians and bureaucracy is a norm to move ahead in India for a business person. How has Infosys dealt with this?
Sorry?
Bribing politicians and bureaucracy is a norm to move ahead in India for business or business people. How has Infosys dealt with this?
Let me tell you. I can only say what happened when I was there, because it's presumptuous of me to talk about other time. As long as I was the CEO and the chairman, there was not one incident when we had to drive anybody. Absolutely no issue. See, I'll tell you, we have to understand that even those corrupt officers, they want to have at least one example to show that they are indeed supporting good people. They wanted one Infosys. They would say, look, if somebody says you are corrupt, they say, ask Infosys. We did all the work, whatever they wanted. We did not, they did not give us any money. So I think if you stand firm, then there is absolutely no issue at all. Absolutely no issue at all. It will mean a little bit of delay in the beginning, and we have all gone through that. It may mean a lot of hard work. It may mean traveling unnecessarily to Delhi or whatever, to Bangalore, whatever. But once you demonstrate 3 times that you are not going to buckle down, then the 4th time they will not trouble you at all, because they realize that return on investment from this channel is 0. Therefore, they would say, let us concentrate on some other channel.
Right, and there are quite a few questions around this, and really, how do you build an organization which is honest and transparent? And in one way, you've already answered this. You've also referred to it. Would you like to add to that?
Well, I am a great admirer of Mahatma Gandhi. In my opinion, he was clearly the best leader India has ever produced, because he led by example. As you know, Sarojini Naidu once said, it takes a fortune to keep this man in poverty, because that man used to travel by 3rd class in train. They were scared that the British may poison him, so there had to be all these plainclothes people surrounding him. Somebody had to test the food that he was to eat, and he will come down at every station, and there will be thousands of fellows, all of that. So Sarojini Naidu said, it takes a fortune to keep this man in poverty. I think Mahatma Gandhi's greatest contribution to India is he demonstrated the power of leadership by example. And I am a great admirer of Mahatma Gandhi. I have always believed that the best way to communicate any values and make sure that people follow that is for the leader to lead by example. I used to be in the office at 6:20. The rest of the people were supposed to come at 7:45. I did not have to tell anybody, why are you not coming at 7:45, etc., etc. They all knew that I would be in the office at 6:20. So I think the moral power that you derive through leading by example is the most powerful instrument a leader has. So therefore, I would say that every leader has to lead by example.
Okay, so you talked about Gandhi and the nation. Padam Jain asks, when honesty, transparency, and integrity is the basis of human and social development, then why don't the ruling public authorities apply it for development of the country and a peaceful society? I'm assuming this is a general question for all times, not aimed at any particular government
No,
or...
once I gave a lecture at Gokhale Institute of Economics and Politics in Pune. It was titled The Role of Culture in Economic Development. I am a great believer in Max Weber. I believe that you need to have a culture conducive to economic growth. If you want economic growth, what is that culture? That culture of honesty, culture of transparency, culture of proaction, culture of taking tough decisions, leading by example, austerity, etc., etc. I mean, I can go on and on and on. So, unless we in India instill, or unless the leaders in India demonstrate this, when I say leaders, not just in politics, leaders in politics, leaders in bureaucracy, leaders in corporate world, leaders in every field, unless they demonstrate their commitment to such a culture, I tell you, India will not grow economically well. It may show some for a short period, 8%, 10%, all of that. But over a long period of time, it simply will not happen. Therefore, we need a culture conducive to economic growth. Corruption has to become zero if we want that.
Right.
We want a good progress. Yeah.
Right. So here's a question which I mean, Name Kumar Dhabu asks: how has your spouse, Mrs. Murthy, added or complemented your values or inspired you? I'm assuming is the question. And has it been beneficial in your decisions and decision making?
I'm very, very lucky to have married Sudha. First of all, she is much smarter than me. She got first rank in every one of her exams, all the 10 semesters of engineering, IISc, everywhere. I never got first rank. The highest I went to was second rank. Second, she has a unique quality which I don't have. And that is, she is very positive minded. She sees plus in every situation. Therefore, it didn't matter whatever difficult times we went through during the initial years of Infosys. She would always give me confidence. She would always say, don't worry, what this means is we have to make this kind of sacrifice, absolutely no problems. Number three, I think she believes in austerity. In fact, in 1990, there was an offer to buy Infosys for $1 million. I assembled all my colleagues. We had a long discussion. My style was to first listen to all the people and then give my opinion finally. The opinion was that we could sell it, but I told them, no, I don't want to sell. I will pay you people out. They were surprised that, this guy doesn't have any money. Why? I said, look, I have gotten used to the kind of life that we have lived for the last, 12, 30 years. We have believed in austerity. We have lived such a life. I've enjoyed every minute of Infosys. Yes, we are passing through a dark time, but I'm sure that there will be light at the end of the tunnel. We'll come to the end of the tunnel, etc. But all of that happened because of my wife. So therefore, I would say that insofar as I am concerned, the value that my wife has added is immeasurable.
Okay, last few questions, Mr. Murthy. So there are a couple around quite expectedly asking who influences you today. So Pankaj Kumar Botra asks, who does Mr. Murthy consider as the most honest business entrepreneur, business person in India? Sunil Gautam asks a similar question. He says, who inspires you? So whichever way you want to take it, Mr. Murthy.
Again, as Vallabh pointed out, and as I also pointed out, there is no perfect human being. Otherwise, we'd all be gods. So for me, I have tremendous respect for Ratan Tata. I have observed him in different situations. I think as human beings go, I think he has a lot of positive qualities. And I have, you know, observed him and I have learned several good qualities from him. Uh, then as you know, J.R.D. Tata was another extraordinary individual. Uh, then I have learned from Bill Gates. I've learned from Jack Welch. I mean, different aspects of improvement has been learned from different people. There is no one being that has all the good qualities. There is no such person. That is God. So I have learned good things. For example, I have learned a lot of good things from Bill Hewlett of Hewlett Packard, and also from David Packard of Hewlett Packard. So, I mean, I've learned from John Chambers of Cisco. So there are people who have taught me a lot of values. You know, yesterday I gave a talk at Times of India for what I learned from my parents, teachers, and my bosses. So, from each of them, I learned different things. And I am the beneficiary of all that wonderful things. So therefore, I think we all must accept that we are all human beings. None of us is perfect. However, there are some good qualities we can learn from other people. Yeah.
So Narayan Pasari asks, what is your specific advice to the new millennial? I'm sure one of them is reaching office at 6:20 a.m., brutal as it sounds. And there is another question which is from Nikita Sharma, and I'll try and see maybe if you can merge it. How do you remain subtle and calm within, despite all the dilemma we are facing in both the world, external and internal? Sometimes external events tend to affect us more than perhaps even internal events. That could be an organization or a home.
Uh, Sorry, I forgot the first one.
So the first one is, what is your advice to young millennials? Or maybe the right word is Generation Z.
No, fortunately, India is at such a stage that there is respect for India from the outside world. India is part of G20. Indian cricketers are doing well. There is considerable attention paid to India. Therefore, this is the time we have to work extremely hard and consolidate these gains so that they become sustainable. And what is our target? Our target is that the poorest child in the remotest part of the country has to have reasonable access to education, healthcare, nutrition, shelter, and hope for a better future. Now, that is only going to happen if we continue to grow our economy. We are today somewhere around $2,000. Of that, there is about 26% of Indians who are below the poverty line. And that has been defined by Government of India, not by me, as people who earn 47 rupees per day in urban India and about 28 rupees per day in rural India, something like that. I may be wrong, but this is around that. But within that, you can't do anything. So therefore, our target is very clear. And fortunately, you and I have received reasonably good education at throwaway prices. For example, I paid at today's exchange rate $4 per year for my engineering education. Of course, even that because I was on scholarship, national scholarship. But I'm saying all my colleagues, they paid $4 at today's 300 rupees per year for a reasonably good engineering education. Therefore, we have a responsibility to pay back whatever we pay back part of that to the poor Indians, to the farmers, to the factory workers, so that their children too have hope of a better life. To do that, we should not hesitate to work 60 hours a week, 80 hours a week. After all, Germans worked like that after the Second World War. So my request to youngsters is to work very, very hard. We have an example, we may not like China. China may not have done right things. All of that, I agree. I am nobody to comment on that. But there is one data that you and I have to look at. That is, China went from a similar position as India. Today it is at $15.5 trillion of economy. We are gasping to get to $2.9 trillion. And we are about the same population. I mean, they are about 15% higher. So therefore, when a large nation like China has demonstrated to us that we could grow the economy by whatever, 15 times, why can't we do that? So, and that can only happen by hard work, by some innovation, by discipline, etc. So I would request all of them to become disciplined, to become hardworking, and to innovate.
And also turn up at office at 6:20 a.m. As an example to look forward to. Mr. Murthy, now we're just about the last question. So, I earlier I did mention Nikita Sharma asked about how does one remain subtle and calm within despite all these dilemmas we're facing. But let me ask the same question a little differently. So you used a lot of references to the epics, the Mahabharata itself, and to great thinkers. But spiritual grounding, I'm sure, is the real grounding, and that is what fuels you or gives you the inspiration to do this. A few words on what spiritually grounds you to remain committed to this path, and what could you share to others who are watching right now or will watch later in your own experiments with truth from a spiritual point?
I am not a spiritual person. No, I am a karma yogi, as I told you. I believe in action. However, there is one thing that I always strive, and that is, in fact, I was once asked by one of the journalists, how I would like to remember. I said, if I am worthy of it, at least if my family were to have an epitaph on my grave, I wanted to say, here lies a fair person. I have striven extremely hard for being a fair person. That is, do unto others what you want them to do unto you. So, I am not a spiritual person. I want to learn from everybody, but that learning has to translate to how I can lead a better quality of life. I can make people around me lead a better quality of life. I can make my society a better society. I don't know what you mean by spiritual, but I'm not. This is my philosophy.
Right, and Karma Yogi is a spiritual response in many ways to the question that I posed. Mr. Murthy, I think we are now completely out of time. I do thank you for your powerful thoughts, your inspiring insights, and your candidness in sharing some of the most difficult experiences from your past, and indeed some of the most powerful influences that you've seen right from your childhood onwards, and to those people who inspire you, you continue to inspire you today. I'm sure on behalf, I can take the liberty of wishing you a very happy 75th on behalf of everyone who's with us today. And may you continue to provide us these insights. On Truth Talks is going to be back. I do request, and we do request you to write to us. Tell us how to make this a movement. Tell us how you can participate in it. Tell us what we should be doing and truthtalks.in should be doing. Coming up next is Justice B.N. Sri Krishna very soon. We will announce the date, and do stay tuned, and you will find out more. Remember the website, it's truthtalks.in. On that note, thank you very much for being with us today. And thank you, Mr. Murthy, once again, and thank you, Mr. Bhansali, as well.
Justice Sri Krishna is an extraordinary individual. I definitely am looking forward to listening to his wise words, and I have no doubt at all that we will all be so much better after listening to him. Thank you. Thanks to all of you, the organizers. It has been a pleasure. I had told you 40 minutes, and I think I did a couple of minutes earlier. I finished a couple of minutes earlier. So I'm happy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks, Vallabh.
Thank you very, very much. I may just want to add one last line, listening to you, that a truthful society becomes a reliable society, and a reliable society becomes a prosperous society. The cost of not being reliable is so huge, and all of us pay it in terms of not only process, but in terms of double guessing and so on. We buy a made in Japan or made in Germany very easily. That's because those societies have become reliable societies, and reliability is nothing but being truthful, saying things as it is. Thank you very, very much, sir. I have no words to express my gratitude. This is a very, very difficult journey, very difficult questions, but who else better than you to answer all of them? Thank you once again, all of you, for joining us.
Thank you.